you guys remember what I shared last week, that various quotes and readings and commentaries from Vidya Paramita, Vigor. It was so interesting. It has been so interesting for me sharing it here, and for the whole week. And then I share to the Zoom I do every Sunday at 1:30 in the afternoon to Chile and Argentina. It's a little bit different there because I translate it as I read, I say it in English and then in Spanish, and it gets a little clumsy. It's not as just direct, reading. But it was also very interesting, and some people don't quite get it. Some people were very moved by it, which I am. It really was helpful for me. It is helpful for me. I do use that kind of energy sometimes. This week for sure, and as we've been talking throughout the last few months, this definitely having our practice and our life with no difference at all. Again, I think you by now, or you've always understood what I mean by that. I certainly don't mean that we're counting our breath or we're carrying our koan every instant of the day. But we do remind ourselves and recognize the moment once in a while, and actually bring it forth in that step, as A.J. McMullen was calling it. With that step. And then let it go. And then again, whenever that again happens. But it's the attitude of not differentiating and not compartmentalizing our practice, or just simply fetishing, if that's a word, fetishing the black cushion. And yet, our black cushion, our whether it's black or not, blue, is our foundation, is our home base, is what reminds us and gives many of us the energy, and sometimes a certain clarity for sure, but it's really, as he was saying last week, it's not a matter of understanding why, how, and what this is. It's a matter of bringing it forth and presenting it, enacting it in that step as he's spelled it out. So that has been very helpful, with that step, and it's gone. And then comes another step, and whether you are, it continues or not, it doesn't matter. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. And leave it at that. I love that. There's no criticism. Oh, that was much better yesterday, or an hour ago was much better than now. Doesn't make any difference. I really believe that. I really know that. It's something happens that we don't have to be on top of it. We don't have to clarify it and make a a statement of what it is and what it will be, because it will not be that, and it is not that. It goes, if the intention is there, the energy is there, it goes way deep, whatever that depth is. I really appreciate what he had to say about that. And one thing that I'd like to read today is just the very beginning, in which Vigor mentions. It's the first two paragraphs. I am grateful to come upon a path that has asked me to buck up, to throw myself in completely, to take my yearnings for awakening seriously, and to commit to an arduous road. I'm grateful because this is how life is. Life is vigorous. My teacher didn't ask me to give up my family, my job, my commitments to reforming society. Instead, he invited me into my own life of striving, into the dynamic force of embodiment, whatever shape that might take. The practice of Viryaparamita, of vigor, is best when it's straightforward, not reliant on a clear idea about what, how, or why. Not relying on a clear idea about what, how, or why, but enacted directly. Too often a clear idea feels sufficient, and that sense of sufficiency gets in the way of our straightforward doing it, enacting it. Direct enacting reveals the depths of that our figuring mind doesn't even consider. Direct enacting reveals the depths that our figuring mind doesn't even consider. The perfection of vigor is the practice of the straightforwardness, both the subject and the mode of our inquiry. The practice of vigor is here, in this present step. How do we walk it right now? What result is here immediately is the step itself. Not what happens later, but what is immediately true. In this stepping, Viryaparamita gives us an immediate gateway. We don't need a complicated or sophisticated or subtle understanding to practice vigor. Dharma is not an explanation, it is an invitation to liberate suffering. It is not an abstract truth, but the means to help transform, to live, to conceive, and to care for each other in a different way. So make a great effort to live, think, and be vigor. Walking through the gate, responding to the invitation, see how this simple intention is deeply profound. See how this simple intention is deeply profound. The roots go down past our seeing. The trying might feel shallow at first, but with each step, the direct effort connects with the depths. What is enacted directly is in the realm of phenomena, is subtle, is deeply important, and has everything to do with responding to suffering. In every situation, in every encounter, there is opportunity to perfect this practice. I would definitely be interested in any of you that wants to relate to this. One, if at all you were reminded last week about something of this, or how, whatever you want to say, that it might contribute to this. Well, it'd be nice if it was a conversation too. I think that one of the advantages that I've often mentioned it, but that I get from things like this, from reading other people's expression of their practice, it's very, very motivating. I mean, with such variety of people, that we all practice this incredibly beautiful path, strong, generous, and arduous sometimes. And yet so simple in some ways, and generous. I mean, that's it, really, generous.
I can say a little about it. I mean, we've been talking about it, Daniel, and sharing this, and I've been listening to you. And what I've noticed for me is there's some, and you can just feedback on it, but there's some kind of habit where somehow I don't think to, but certain situations bring it up. When I'm on a walk and I take a step, or when I'm at work walking into the door, and somehow that relates to me paying attention, or when I walk down the hall of the bath. So somehow there's these, like how our lives are so repetitive, right? In those repetitive places, it triggers that awareness in a funny, automatic way without trying. And outside of my sort of formally sitting and dokusan and being here. So I don't know if that's it, but I've been noticing that for me is that automatically I'm not thinking, I'm going to go out and deal with my practice, but I mean, I have been trying to incorporate it, or, be with this, and particularly with the walking and things like that. But noticing in time, there is this sort of, as I repeat everything else, the awareness repeats too. So it kind of becomes a little automatic, but I don't want to say it that way, because when it's there, but I just let it, it's a gift to let it go. I mean, to not focus, just to know that, just what you said, just follow those instructions. So it feels alive.
Well, that's the whole point, because it's not just a matter of like brushing my teeth, I mean, I brush my teeth often, just completely thinking about anything else, and not, so it's not just a habit. I mean, it has to, it's energetic, it's very energetic. I mean, without making a big deal out of it, but this is some kind of an intention. And I think that if we spend a lot of time doing this, of course, it doesn't become a big deal, But I think what is so important is that we do it, and we do it, and not mess with it. Just do it and let it go, and purposely let it go, because you cannot hold on to it, or as this guy that I quoted 6 months ago, if it's not short moments, then our discursive mind creeps in and starts, nothing dangerous, nothing horrible, but it breaks that moment of just simple recognition of, this, at that moment, the whole universe. I mean, God, how fancy can you say it? I mean, it's ridiculous. And yet, that's how it is. So, yeah, I think it's like any other practice, and repetition is so much part. But the dumb craft, what's the word? Like dull repetition. It's not dull. There's nothing like been there, done that. Oh, yeah, I know about that shit. No, it's boom, boom. And then not even that, maybe, maybe as we keep on doing this, it's just very simple. It's just life. Plain, ordinary life.
Like frustrations.
Like frustration?
Yeah, yeah. Let me go. Look, today, I think I hate it when something goes wrong with my email program. And that happened. Everything was just fine yesterday, and then today, on my iPad, I can send in and out, but on the computer, I can only receive.
I thought I was the only one that had simple problems like that.
Well, it may be simple, but I say it is. I think that can bother me more than just about anything in the world. And so I've talked to people online 3 times now, and they've given me walked me through 3 different things, and it hasn't been solved yet. But this is life. And so what you said that several words, and I put this together just while you were talking and such. Okay, letting go, not knowing, life's a show, only flowing. So I'm getting a really good lesson in letting go. I don't know what's wrong with my computer. This is the show that's been presented to me right now. And so I'm going with the flow. And the way I'm going with the flow is I said, you know what? I'm going to be sitting with you guys tonight. So I'm going to kick back and enjoy the flow. So thank you.
Well, I mean, computer problems are, without a doubt, for me, one of the most annoying and impatient thing. And I completely I'm a wreck when things are not working. Not the email. Email, I don't care too much. I mean, if I can get it on one side, on the phone and not on the computer, sometimes it happens to do passwords or change. Who knows?
Don't mess with your WhatsApp.
But I, I talk to 40 people, 41 people a week, So, and through the various, channels of WhatsApp or Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or Messenger, and when that's not working, and the phone or the thing don't ring. But yeah, no, it's annoying. It's like driving, as and we all also know it's even more common to get uptight with drivers. But as you were expressing it, Bill, of course I understand, but it's like, I'm learning not to have a story behind it, not to even consider anything, because when I get into that already, I'm just doing my stuff. Well, it's life, and I just want to deal with it, and it's like all of that. Of course, we do that, and but try, what I'm saying is like, not even get into that. Just do it and forget about it. And it feels good, it feels not deep, or it feels whatever way it feels, just, especially since I'm not talking about sitting on my cushion. I'm talking mostly about walking or hiking, which I do. So, but yeah, it's not even what it is. Me saying, well, that's what I had today. That's what it is at that moment. And then I think that's difficult. It's difficult not to have an opinion, and it's difficult not to say, well, as you were saying, tonight I'm going to sit with a gang and that'd be nice or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's more like boom, 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 boom. That's a guy was asking me this morning, Daniel, you use that word instantaneity. And and of course I do. And I know that it's not a very common word to use. We all know what the instant is, and that instantaneity is the moment. And all of these things, it's almost like all we can do is the recognition of that at that moment, whether it's big, whether it's mediocre, whether it's incredibly like an atomic bomb, or it's just and keep on. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. I don't need to have a story behind it at all. I mean, and if I do, it's just my story. It's not what I'm doing. So yeah. And that is, we're not accustomed to it, man. We're really not accustomed to it, because we're always adding and trying to get perspective, and therefore blah, 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 blah. And then, okay, we have this sentence to end and grasp that comprehension in a satisfactory manner. And that's what it's saying, it limits us. I'm satisfied. Oh, how nice, how pleasant.
As you were saying that, another closely related word came to me, which is immediacy. Right. Immediacy, which is nice because it actually says, you're not putting anything in the middle. Right. Which is very close to the heart of. Yeah, I think I mentioned to you guys that I mean, it's been over 30 years that I left the Gurdjieff work. But in that work that I did for almost 20 years, that word was completely part, I mean, of everyday practice. The idea was very physical. I think I mentioned it was physical work, because that's what we did, a lot of physical work. And we would try at some point to do the movements of digging, of chopping wood, of washing dishes, of sweeping the grounds, or washing the cars, or whatever. But at that moment, like wash and the soap, and that moment, and at that moment, see if there was moments in which that moment of instantaneity gets the vocabulary that it was used, it was like it almost gets an imprint in a certain part of the body. And our teacher used to say around the pituitary gland, whatever. I don't think that's very interesting, but that's what the way that he would put it, I mean,
never talked about what we talk about down here, But anyway, and just the idea of it being setting an imprint, setting something, and then it gets accumulated, if you will. I mean, it's the body gets accustomed. The body gets accustomed and recorded in the sense that here you are digging, you push the shovel, that's it. Boom. Boom. And a few times you might have that experience of nothing else but just that, oh, And so that's where the use of that word comes from. Yeah, I think immediacy is it's good, but somehow for me, so it's just my shit, my stuff. This other one, it's even more repetition, I left that book in Chile, the little book it's called Vajra Words by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. That's the reading that I was doing before I went to Chile, and I left the book there about repetition and how important is repetition and recognition of, and he uses the term of mind essence, the recognition of Buddha nature, that moment, and then just let it go. You let it go because there's no stability right now, and we try to hold on to, we're just deluding ourselves. So let it go. And what is that? It's not let it go, just don't mess with it. Or don't give yourself perspective or discursive perspective of, oh, this is good because it which is so natural, but it's kind of fun to ignore all of that stuff.
Well, you just said, ignore it, and that's helpful. Maybe it wasn't clear, but the reason I use the term after letting go and saying not knowing is that when we let something go, that's, for me, that's a really to not know, what's going to happen next, to not know, fill in the blank, kind of a faith in the next moment kind of thing is helpful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no.
Rather than pushing something away. And then I think,
yeah.
And so, I'm going to sleep well tonight. I know this is going to, this is not going to last forever. I also have another person in the household that it affects our computer, but but nonetheless, this has happened before. And if I could count all the different times I've been in this mess trying to change passwords and all that stuff, it always comes out good at the other end. But and so this is just what's happening now, and I'm not trying to avoid it. I think I'm. It's like you said, it's something to practice, every time, because it's going to come up again or something like it, and but to be, like I said, in that it's a good space that really not knowing and not arguing. and like you said, not telling stories. So thank you, Daniel.
No, thank you, Bill. Yeah, so it's, and the way to do this is by doing it and doing it and doing it, and then we develop. I remember as a young boy, whenever, I don't know what age it was, when we start doing arithmetic, and a little bit of mathematics and stuff, and geometry, which was always kind of weird. But I remember so clearly when something kind of silly, I might have mentioned it, but it's like a dot, and the teacher said that a line is a continuous dot. It's a moving dot. And I remember as a boy, I was just so amazed. I mean, I might have been 8 years old or something like that. I thought, wow, that's intense. If you put dots, dot, 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 there's very little gap in between. But then the line is absolutely no gap. Another image that Mr. Nyland, who was Wilhelm Nyland, the Dutch man, American, that was our Gurdjieff teacher, that met Gurdjieff in 1924 and was with him. I mean, in Paris a bit, in New York and Chicago, but he lived in New York in 1949. He used to, the metaphor of fireflies. And I had never been in a place with fireflies. I knew what they were conceptually, but I had never seen them because I had been in New York, but it wasn't the appropriate time of the year. But I mean, throughout the years after that, I've seen them very often because when I go to Argentina, it's in the east coast of South America, very similar to the east coast of, and in the summer session, we have tons of fireflies. And he would use that moment like fireflies, and he wrote a book called Fireflies. And he uses that metaphor of that moment of awareness that just boom, it's gone. Boom, it's gone. And then sometimes you see a lot of them, But yeah, and again, that was his metaphor for these moments in which we actually have that moment of just awareness, and it's gone naturally. Mike?
Yeah, I'm really touched by this kind of vigor that we can bring into our practice in this continuous way, like right here, this embodiment here, just for a moment, fully, and then letting it go, and then fully, and then letting it go, and then fully, right? So just that willingness, and it seems like the heart and the mind and this great universe is so wild and beautiful and intense and wondrous and glorious in so many ways that vigor feels like such a beautiful thing, this exploration of it and entering it, and some of the moments I enter are not easy, and yet the intensity of them is, even in its scaldingness, is sometimes really beautiful and important, and there's light inside of it. So just chewing on that, like, vigorous practice and that sense of vigor that brings depth and heart. There's this quote that I used to read in my trauma groups that goes, life is never what one dreams. I love that because of the delusional quality here. It's seldom what one desires, but for the vital spirit and the eager mind, the future will always hold a search for buried treasure and the possibility of high adventure. And there's something about like these popping moments of intimacy that seem to, if you lean into your life, there's like you just look out of the window and then all of a sudden everything is glowing with this light. And then you put it down and you wash the dishes, just so beautiful.
It's that word, that two words, letting go. It's such a, sometimes it's, I think that it's not that's what we do. I think that what we let go of is our judgment, our opinion. The experience comes and goes. It's whether I want to or not, So at the same time, it's also a good term to use, let go. But if you look at it with a microscope, which is ridiculous because you don't do that, but it's like you just get more and more precise. And it's not that you let go the experience of recognition. You let go what we add to it, and that, because at that moment, there's nothing, there's just that, Yeah. Again, it's kind of big because we use it and we can use it in both ways and can be very useful. Let go, like when people say, well, I need to let go of my selfishness. Okay, just press the button and let go. No, we can't. If we could let go, okay, it's gone. Finita la musica. What do you mean selfishness? I haven't been a moment of selfishness in my last 35.5 years, maybe. No, it's not the way it goes. Yeah. And then, sometimes literally it goes out by itself, because there's nowhere it can hang out, when the moment occurs. There's just what is complete, full, the thusness. Again, it's a little bit philosophical, but it's not, because we can experience that,
Yeah, that's really deep and challenging in a beautiful way. Because of course you're not letting go of the experience itself, but the attachment and the self that you've created around it. And then, because in a way, that experience of intimacy is always ongoing. It's not manufactured, or that you go up and grab it from a shelf or something. It's the nature itself. I thank you for that. That really drops me into
the other day somebody was talking about control, and I think it was in Argentina, that this person was saying something about I forget the context, but it's like I'm losing control or something like that. And somebody said, you're losing the illusion of control. You had never had any control, but we have the illusion that we have control over things. So that is one of those things, like, sure, we understand what the person is saying, but then this other thing makes it even more clear. There you go, and see more deep. My sister used to get very uptight at me. God, Daniel, you're so picky. Why are you so picky? words are just words. They come and go. And it was like, because we're talking and I just questioned some word that she said, you know what that word means? Yeah, but, what difference does it make? Well, of course it makes a difference. If we're conversing, how about conversing appropriately and use appropriate words if we want to be understood and communicate something actually that it's worthwhile communicating. Most of conversations are just babbling or comments about whatever. And she didn't understand. She thought I was just being critical. You're so critical, Well, words are incredible. Language is really, it can be so alive and so beautiful. Well, we know about poetry, that's for sure. Good poetry. But why is it so interesting for me in this case, reading Ejo's comments about here? Because they go so deep the way that he expresses it. And I understand something there, that it's beautiful, it's fascinating, and I'm so grateful that language can be used appropriately. And of course, Dogen talks about that, and we call it often live language as opposed to dead words.